It's a resident blackbird. I think he's sitting in our rowan tree, and he often sits on our neighbour's roof, which case his song reflects off the wall of the house and comes back in here. But it's great. It's one of my favourite sounds in the whole wide world. He's giving it laldy, as we say up here in Scotland. Actually, where you guys are right now, i.e. in my camera, you're about, what, 8 feet from their nest, which is right outside the window of the shed, which unfortunately, there's a hedge that runs down by the side of the shed, and my extractor fan extracts right onto where their nest is, so every now and again they'll get blasted with Mr. Hobby or cellulose thinner, but yeah, he's certainly giving it up there. Anyway, Yamas, which I think is Greek for cheers, and I think I'm saying it right. I mean, in theory this should be Mythos or Zeos beer, but it's just good old-fashioned Scottish Tennent's in a Spanish glass. So, there you go. It's great getting the door open again. Oh, so much nicer. Right, okie dokie. Here we have the Tanmodel 1/48 scale Republic RF-84F Thunderflash, which was very kindly supplied to me by those lovely chappies at UMP Retail, Ultimate Modelling Products, to first of all review for you and also to build for you, which is what I have done, because here it is. So what can we say about this kit? It's a brand new kit from a brand new manufacturer, and did I enjoy building it? Yes, I did. And not being a jet person, as you know, or some of you may know, or one of you might know, I'm more of a propeller kind of guy, haven't I? In fact, the other thing that's on my bench at the moment, which is taking considerable shape, is the 132nd Hasegawa Hien Key 61. But we'll get to that in some later video. And of course, I built the Goshawk last year, and there's an A10 and a MiG-29 over there, so yeah, not a jet person at all, eh? So yeah, anyway, did I enjoy building this kit? Yes. Why did I enjoy building this kit? Well, A, it was free, but also it was something a little bit different, and you know, the whole comfort zone thing, as in trying to get out of. And I've never done a 3-tone camo before. Oh, there's the female just landed on the greenhouse. I wonder if the chick's with her somewhere. I think they're on their second batch this year. Very busy blackbirds. Yeah, so well, let's get to the nitty gritty. Was there any issues? Oh, bloody wasps! Wasps are coming in. They're massive. Don't go. That's the subwoofer. Don't go. Oh god, it's gone in the subwoofer. The wasp has gone in my subwoofer. Come on, out of there. Out. Or I'll put on VNV Nation, and that'll be it. You'll be... The nitty gritties, yes, right, okay, the downsides of this kit. The upsides are the same upsides that you get in any kit, you know. It's fun to build, nice looking thing, different, whatever your upside, whatever you look for in a kit, it's there. But the downsides are, now the thing is, I get the gist that they're just... I get the gist that they're just teething problems. It's a new manufacturer, new kit, things that they need to address and will address and will get right the next time or whatever. And they're no worse than you would get from any other short-run manufacturer. In fact, you know, some that have been around for decades are still making mistakes worse than this. So, you know, kudos to Tanmodel for getting what they got as good as they got. Yeah. Yeah. Fit issues, one or two. My main bugbear with it is actually something you can't really see, and it's the way the undercarriage locates into the wheel wells. Well, not so much the front strut, but the two wing struts. In that you have, generally, as far as I'm aware, virtually every undercarriage strut will have a female receptor hole, and the top of the undercarriage strut will have this little male stud, which, as nature intends, the male goes inside the female, and voila, you've got your wheel in place, held rigid where it should be. In the case of this one, it was a very, very short, very short stub, so there wasn't a lot of penetration. It was about 1 millimetre or so, and the female receptor was quite wide, so there wasn't a lot of contact, as it were. Get out, get out, 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 out. Which meant that I had to have the aircraft on its back, and if I didn't, the wheels would have just fallen over. There was really nothing. Once the glue was there, there was nothing holding them in position. So, I mean, I know, well, actually, I'm not sure that I could have drilled and put a little wire stud, because I think it was quite close to the, I didn't want to risk it. I didn't want that coming through the top surface of the wing. So basically, as I say, I had to sit there holding the wheels in place until the glue kind of set, and then kind of made sure that their geometry was correct, that they weren't too far forward, they weren't too splayed out, or in, or back, or whatever. So really, what you're looking at is that kind of contact, as opposed to that kind of contact. So I would like Tanmodel to address that, have a wider collar for the strut to fit into, to hold it rigid and in the correct geometry. And there was one or two things in the instructions that were slightly vague as to where things should go. And one of the cameras in the camera bay attaches very, very loosely to the wall of the inner wall of the fuselage, and just sits on something, as opposed to locating somewhere, being like a shape within a shape for it to locate. It just literally rested on a corner, as far as I was able to interpret from the instructions. The instructions were good, because they were that CGI, that AutoCAD look, and they were colour coded as well. It was like the clear parts were one colour, and I think that the most recent part fitted was a particular colour or whatever, and it did make it easier to kind of see. But some of the smaller parts did lack definition, which is not a major issue, because you'll get that with any short run manufacturer. Some of the sprue gates were a little heavy, and in places could have been, sometimes they were on the mating surface, sometimes they weren't on the mating surface. But again, you know what, it's nothing that the application of a little modelling skill shouldn't overcome. So these aren't really bad points, they're just, because you get them everywhere. Okay, maybe you don't get them on a Tamiya or whatever, but they are prevalent in other manufacturers, so it's not a thing that we should be pointing the finger at Tanmodel. It's just things that are present in this particular kit, and I'm telling you about this particular kit. So there. One thing that, or one area that the kit could be greatly enhanced with, would be the addition of a small photo etch fret. I mean, it's not an inexpensive kit, so if it added an extra £1 or £2, or whatever your currency, or even if it could be absorbed within the cost of the kit, a small photo etch fret to supply seat harnesses, because trying to track down Thunderflash seat harnesses was actually quite tricky. I ended up scratch building them. I actually ended up using some these super fabric harnesses that I use on most kits. Once you take the harness out, keep the bit that's left, because you can then cut that into little strips and make your own harnesses, which is quite cool. Which is exactly what I did. And I can't even remember what I did for the buckles. I do see something silvery down there. What did I do? Actually, I think I just painted them on using Mr. Metal Colour or whatever. And I put in a couple of oxygen tubes as well, because they're present in a Thunderflash cockpit. And the other thing that Photo Etch would have really added to with this kit is the wing fences. There's 2 wing fences on each wing, which are separate injection moulded parts, but had they been photo etched, in which case very, very thin metal, that would have just added that wee touch of accuracy to the overall look. And if they were putting in a photo etch fret to fill out the rest of the fret, I've shown them closed, but the air brakes would have looked great if you wanted to show them open, that is, if they were photo etch, because they're perforated as well, so that would have looked quite nice. And for those who wanted to show, because it's a photo reconnaissance aircraft, and you do get all the cameras for the camera bays, and you can show the camera bays open, if they were photo etched, that would have looked quite nice as well. But that's just me. So as I say, I went for the Hellenic colour scheme. Oh, the decals. There, there were a few decal numbers on the instruction sheet that didn't actually exist on the decal sheet, and there were vice versa, which meant that it was a tricky the proposal putting the decals on, but going for the Hellenic one, which had very little. There was no wing markings, other stencil data, but there was no insignia on the wings. There was just the roundel and its number, which was basically about it. In fact, that's the phone. Could you excuse me 1 second? So, yes, the Greek Hellenic Air Force colour scheme was what I was going for. And in particular, I wanted to try and portray the look that in fact, it's the F4s and the A7s that have this particular look. And to be honest, I don't think, from what I've been able to detect from my online research, was that the Thunderflash has never ever reached this level of weathering. I may be wrong, because this particular Thunderflash was in service in the Greek Air Force in about the 70s. Now this is an aircraft that came out in the 50s, so it might be quite feasible that they did reach that level of wear and tear, but I've just never seen any pictures of it, so I don't know. But the A7s and the F4s, sorry, have this very, very unique, uber faded, sun bleached paint scheme that, now I read somewhere, I don't know if this is true, you may be able to correct me on this, that prior to having their photographs taken of those particular aircraft, they hosed them down with water to clean them or whatever. And obviously the outer skin's baking in the hot Grecian sun, the water evaporated very, very quickly, just leaving damp areas around the panel lines, which gave this very, very unique look, and it was that I wanted to try and capture. What I eventually ended up with was kind of half what I was hoping to achieve. I didn't fully achieve it, and what I did arrive at took about 3 or 4 different incarnations, by which time I actually developed the method that I should have used at the start, at the end, by which time when I say it was too late, I mean, it's never too late. I mean, there was nothing to stop me removing all the paint and starting from scratch, but because it was a 3-colour scheme, and it took a lot of masking. Well, I didn't use I used that Panzer putty. Have you ever used this stuff? It's the weirdest. Oh, sorry about that. I don't even know where it is. Sorry. It's this black flubber stuff. Now, normally when you're doing your camo, you use blue tack. So you roll up a sausage and you put it on if you want to get a feathered look, that is, and spray away, take it off. This Panzer putty, which I have no idea what I've done with, is this black shiny stuff, which has the weirdest consistency. It's like dark matter, and it's self-leveling. It's the weirdest stuff. You take it out and you roll a sausage and you mark out your camouflage. Now, unless you're using it right there and then, if you leave it, your sausage sort of flattens out into this weird shape, so you get a hard edge, which is actually what I wanted on this. I didn't want a feathered edge. But if you're doing multiple surfaces, wing and fuselage, so your fuselage obviously is vertical, this stuff could actually start to run. Now the strange thing, it comes in a little tin, and when you're finished, you roll up and you put it in a bowl. The next day it's completely flat. It's kind of just, it has this weirdest viscosity ever. It's like, you know what, I don't know what it's like. I've never come across any material like this before. But anyway, I used that to get the camo scheme. And because it was quite involved, because it's 3 colours, and because each time, and this is where I actually went wrong, I faded the paintwork with, you know, I lightened the paint and then did passes with that and just slowly brought the intensity of the colour down. I shouldn't really have done that in hindsight, but I did. And because that took quite a lot of effort, I wasn't going to strip all the paint and start again. But my method of weathering, as you may or may not know, there's an exceptionally long and boring video all about this, where I weather an Airfix Typhoon using this method. So if you want to go and check that out, fine. Just be prepared, it is a long video. Oh yeah, because I do short videos, don't is using UMPs, going back to UMP, it's a very UMP orientated video, is their washes. And now their washes are clay based, which means that the particles are very, very, very fine. But what I do is these little dishes that you get your creme brulees in, is I pour out a little bit of the wash, enough to cover the surface, and I let it dry, and what you're left with is a very, very fine powder. Now yeah, you can use pastels. I do have pastels, but I'm using these at the moment. And what I do is I take a paintbrush, lop the top of an old paintbrush up. It's our resident sparrows. That's the male sparrow up there. Yes, hello. Shouting. Anyway, it's funny the way he was looking at me there. So, who's that weirdo? Lop the top of the paintbrush off, so you've got this little tuft, and then I scour the paint using whatever colour. I mean, I use generally it's light dirt, mud and concrete. Concrete comes out like this pale grey colour. Mud, oddly enough, comes out like a pinkish colour, and light dirt is this lighty beige colour. And now the thing is, I tend to use Mr. Hobby colours, the aqueous colours, and the vast majority of them are either semi-gloss or full gloss, which is very, very difficult to do this method with, because what I actually do is, by scouring these pigments into the surface of like a matte finish paint, is you're adding a pigment to the existing pigments, thus changing the colour of the actual paint. If they're gloss and you have to put a varnish over and you apply this method, you're effectively altering the colour of the varnish, which didn't have a colour to start with. So rather than taking a green and adding the beige and making it a lighter green, if it's varnished, you're really just seeing the beige over the green, and it doesn't quite work as well. But anyway, unless what you could do is take a very fine grit paper and just rub the surface and make them a wee bit sort of matter, as it were, in which case that'll work. I just wish Mr. Hobby didn't do... I mean, I know it helps when it comes to decals, having a gloss or a semi-gloss finish straight up, but I do wish they were flat, but they're so good, they spray so well. Anyway, so yeah, so I already had a weathered faded paint to start with, and the idea was to have these pigments on the paints and then apply something to disperse it along the panel lines. The trouble with dispersing a pigment powder is that you'll get a tide mark on the outside of the dispersal area, which you can then sort of use the brush and just soften that edge. But because what was coming through was already faded paint, I don't have the demarcation that I would have liked that you see on the actual things. As it turns out, at the very end, had I used this at the start, I would have nailed it. But the dispersal that I used, or the dispersal medium that I used, is AK Interactive's neutral grey filter, which was just this is an enamel filter, and it was great. It just created this area of non-pigment on the paint, allowing the paint to show through. But as I say, by this time the paint was already faded. I also, again, may as well, sticking with UMP, and they also kindly supplied me with their new primers, which are actually the Badger ones. What did Badger call them? They're Styling Res or something. Anyway, these are made by Badger, so it's quality stuff. And they gave me their black, their white and their grey. I was going to black base it, but because again I was going for this faded paint, in fact, again, in hindsight, I should have done, but I actually primed it with the grey and the white, sort of in areas, just to give a tonal variation, which I didn't actually end up with, so it was a complete waste of time. But they're very good primers, good adhesion to the surface, unlike certain primers that when you sand them you can literally peel the damn things off. These are quite a good solid, well, it's Badger, and Badger kind of know what they're doing as far as airbrushing is concerned. So I primed it with these as well. So it was, as I say, it was a very UMP orientated build from start to finish. But yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed it. Would I recommend this kit? Yeah, I would, because it'll give you something that you don't see very often. I'm just at the Scottish Nationals there, and as far as I was aware, that was the only Thunderflash in the whole show, and I'm quite certain that if there were other Thunderflashes, it was the only Tanmodel Thunderflash in the whole show. So if you want something a wee bit different, this is it. In fact, if you're on Facebook, if you like Tanmodel, and the chap who owns the company keeps posting pictures of builds of these things in all their variety of colours and designations, and there's some quality stuff out there. So it can build into a very nice little kit. Hopefully I've done something kind of along those lines. As I said, not without its issues, but then name a kit that isn't without issues. So with that, I will let you get on with your lives, and I will get on with the rest of my Scottish beer in a Spanish glass. And again, I shall say yamas, and we'll see you all again soon. Toodaloo. Or should I say, this is Sparta!